Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Tour Catch Up,
Nadal's illustrious career comes to an end.
Murray joins Team Djokovic for the Australian Open.
And Italy secure both the Davis Cup and Billie Jean King Cup titles in Malaga.
Kim, Chris, today is the 25th of November, and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. It's our last Tour Catch Up of the season, and we are going out with a bang. Rafael Nadal's glittering career has now officially come to an end in Malaga. Italy have secured both the Davis Cup and Billie Jean King Cup titles, headlined by star performances from Jannik Sinner and Jasmine Paolini. And a bombshell out of nowhere. Andy Murray is joining Novak Djokovic's team for the Australian Open Down Under next season. I am still in shock. I am still in shock. Chris and Kim, I want to know, are you still in shock? Because this just had me floored over the weekend. Where did this come from?
I thought it was an April Fool's joke, but I thought we're in November, so what's going on?
A Serbian April Fool's, so they have a different day for it. I'm not sure. But when I saw the announcement, I didn't think that it would be a video that would announce it. I thought it would be much more official, like a press release or something like that. So I had to watch it and double take because it did seem like until, Andy Murray also confirmed it, it might just be like a nice tribute to Andy Murray at the end of the year from Novak Djokovic. We haven't seen a Rafa tribute from Djokovic yet, and maybe it was just a Murray one.
I think Djokovic is just waiting and penning a poem for Rafa, actually.
Yes,
He's just
yes.
biding his time with that one.
This
But
is going to reuse
yeah,
Joel's.
I'm very much looking forward to the Australian Open just to see how it's
See
going to
Murray
work.
in
Murray
Djokovic's
and
player
Novak's
box. It just doesn't
thoughts.
look right.
Yeah.
How will he support? Would he be clapping, standing up, quite vocal, or a bit Ivan Lendl in his approach, do we think? Well, we'll
Well,
answer
we'll
that later,
unpick
yes.
this later on. We'll get into it later on. Listeners, do let us know your thoughts because it's definitely one maybe we didn't see coming. But before we get into our highlights from the last week, aside from that exciting news, Joel, I think we've got a little announcement, haven't we?
We do indeed. Our Tennis Weekly crowdfunder is now open. Very, very exciting stuff indeed. It's something we do every year, and your support allows us to keep doing what we are doing. We really do rely on all your support as we are a by fans for fans podcast. And so far, your support has allowed us to produce and record 468 episodes and counting across 7 seasons, including 77 this year alone. So yeah, phenomenal stuff, but we can only do it with your support.
Yeah, it has been an incredible year for us. I didn't quite realize we'd done 77 podcasts, but there you go. That's the stat. So big thank you to all our listeners for making this happen. The great engagement we got last year and the support from the crowdfunder really helped us to grow the podcast and actually took us to heights we never really thought possible back in the day when Joel first started the podcast
Yeah.
on a park bench on his own. We
It
had
sounds
our own
quite
desk
sad.
this
It
year.
was very, very sad. Yes.
But we had our own desk this year at Wimbledon as accredited broadcasters, and we were members of the press there, putting your questions to the players at the home of tennis itself. Joel very proudly even asked Andy Murray his last ever
Mm.
question in a press conference in his professional singles career before he
At
became a
Wimbledon,
coach.
it was very tearfully as well. But yeah, it was an incredible moment that it just would not have been possible without the support of our listeners to help the podcast keep going.
And all of these amazing things that have happened this year do all come at a cost. There is always a significant cost to running a podcast, and we do invest what we make. So that covers costs such as our broadcasting license for Wimbledon, subscription to podcasting platforms and social channels, as well as upgrading our kit this year so we could record live and on site at Wimbledon. So anything we do have left over, we do use towards subsidizing travel, as well as our crowdfunder being the main thing that's able to keep us running and delivering podcasts every week without too big of a negative balance sheet at the end of the year.
So, listeners, if you want to show your support for the Tennis Weekly podcast, make sure to sign up to and give to our Tennis Weekly crowdfund, which is now open. We will put the link in the description. Now, like last year, we are with GoFundMe, and the link is www.gofundme.com/tennis-weekly-2025. That's www.gofundme.com-tennis-weekly-2025. The link will be put in the description.
Yeah, your support keeps us going, no matter how large or small the contribution. It is hugely appreciated. And even if you can't contribute to the crowdfunder, just listening to us is a big help. And, donating on top of that would be fantastic. We can be more thankful to our audience. It's what keeps us going, keeps us motivated, and keeps us passionate about doing what we love. And we absolutely couldn't do that without you. So a big thank you for all this, and thanks in advance if you are able to contribute to the crowdfunder. And without further ado, I think let's get on to what's happened in the past week. I mean, let's do our kind of mini highlights because I'm going to start with this one because obviously I'm going to be talking about
Wesley Koolhof.
Wesley Koolhof's retirement,
Yes.
precisely.
Yeah. It was so sad. It was so emotional. I mean, I guess the only other retirement that happened this week, Carlos Bernardes as well. I mean, that was
he did,
equally emotional.
Yeah. I don't think anyone else retired though, did they?
No, I don't think
didn't
so
see
either.
the coverage.
No, just a Rafa Nadal,
Oh,
whoever he is. I'm not
did
sure.
that happen? I
That guy
forgot
that
about
won,
that.
all those slams. But what I did like was not all of the other tennis players that exist in the world, but many top players. They did a little tribute to Rafa's retirement on social media by changing their social avatars to the Rafa's ball, horns, his personal logo, and we had some fabulous content from the likes of Serena Williams, who was dressed up in her Rafa shirt, her bandana. It was really nice to see all the players kind of coming out, all their messages and farewell messages. Obviously Rafa's a greatly admired and loved player in the sport and very well respected, and you could really see that on show with all of the players coming out and giving their 2 cents worth.
Do you think they have like a massive WhatsApp group and they were like, what should we do for Rafa? And then they were like, I know, why don't we all make our profile pictures on our social media channels, the Rafa Bull logo?
It is a good one. I'm looking down the list and I think everyone there is sponsored by Nike except Casper Ruud.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
so
there was a
maybe he'll
Nike
get
link.
in trouble for posting that, but I know he's a great friend of Rafa's. So, but it is not. I kind of want one of those T-shirts. I think a few people got sent them. A lot of the players did as well. So I would love one of those. If anyone is listening that can send us a Rafa, well, we'd have to give it to Kim, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But on the other side of this, there is something else that's sad about the retirement of Nadal, and that came from Sumit Nagal, who said Nadal remained a dream. And I just thought, honestly, we've seen so many people who have such similar names play, and to miss out on this one, that feels like a real own goal there, doesn't it, for tennis?
What a shame we never had that.
Sad day. That was definitely one of the biggest, I guess, missed opportunities of Nadal's career.
For a meme. But Nadal did hold the fort when it came to Nadal-Federer match, because Nadal-Federer happened, but Nadal-Federer didn't happen at the US Open. So bit of trivia for you there. Shouldn't have done that now. Should have done that for the quiz next week. But either way, that did make me smile.
Yes, it was a fun anecdote, fun share from Sumit Nagal there. Joel, I suppose Andy Murray was your highlight of the week, and his coaching news. I don't think anything could top that for you, could it?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about it in the second half.
It's got a whole feature.
It is crazy news. I wasn't expecting it. I don't think many people were expecting it. My WhatsApp just lit up with many messages of being like, did you see this news? Why is this happening? Yeah, we're definitely going to be needing to sort of dissect and pick the pieces of that later, because it's just I feel like with the end of the season, you're sort of thinking tennis is just going to simmer down. And then all of a sudden we get this news drop on us.
Never a dull moment in the sport of tennis. And yeah, we'll unpick maybe the why later on, what motivations there are for both players. But let's go back to the Davis Cup finals. We did have that last week. We did have Rafa's retirement. We did see his last professional match take place out in Malaga, where he went down in straight sets to Botic van der Zandschulp 6-4, 6-4. A fitting end, perhaps, because he said this after he lost his first match playing for his country at Davis Cup, And then, he's lost his last match doing the same thing. So perhaps it's come full circle. It's a fitting end. But I mean, just on the match itself, what did you make of what we saw from Rafa in that match? Do you think it was right that he came in to play that singles match, given the fact that, he hasn't played in a while and obviously, didn't get the win? Joel?
Ooh.
Or I mean, yeah, well, I mean,
Careful what you say, Joel.
it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, obviously, we'll talk about the retirement ceremony in a bit, and I almost feel like that's a little bit separate. But the performance to me showed he was a little bit of a step off. But at the same time, he just, I think, characterized what we all know Rafa is about in terms of he never gives up. He will fight until the very end, even if he is not at the peak of his powers. He is going to give it 110%. And I think he did leave it out on court, and that's something he can be proud of. But I do wonder about the selection and the pick. And I ultimately think, like, if they had gone with maybe like Roberto Bautista Agut, they could have very well got to the final.
Yeah, I don't know. Would RBA have beaten Van der Zandschulp either? I'm not really sure whether he's had much
He's a
form
tricky
or
customer. He's won a title this year. That kind of came out of nowhere,
yeah.
and that was on an indoor hard court. So, I mean, it's tough because Rafa is such a great player and an inspired Rafa. Who knows if he could get a result like this? He's beaten top 10 players this year or players very close to that. I mean, he beat de Minaur in Barcelona. He hasn't had that much, hasn't played that much tennis since then. A few tournaments and obviously the Olympics. But I mean, was it also because of the fact it gets very complicated retiring in a Davis Cup tie because you just don't know what's going to happen? So then
It was quite
that was
weird,
not
wasn't
the
it?
that was not the that was not in the script, was it? To lose
the 5 hour
to the
wait
Netherlands,
to
no.
find out what might happen. Is this the last one? Will we see him again?
I was reading about, like, I know there was kind of talk about, where was Federer and where all the players, and I think there was talk of, like, they were going to be there for the semi-final. And they were sort of obviously banking on that scenario happening, and the fact that it almost, to some people may have ended prematurely meant that arguably the ceremony was actually, I've seen some people say a little bit underwhelming because maybe it was such a shock that it happened there and then.
It was also quite late. I mean, I know everyone in Spain does things late, so it's probably fine for the locals, but it was on around like midnight, I think. After that doubles match, Spain had obviously been knocked out by the Netherlands, and it was around 5 hours after Rafa had stepped off court. And, we didn't know whether what we'd seen would be the last or if they was going to come back on, Thursday or what have you. But I think, I think it was quite a small, low key ceremony, but I think also that was supposedly what Rafa had requested. He's not
it feels
a
like a
flashy
Rafa
person,
thing, doesn't it?
So all the bells and whistles, not really his vibe. And from the speech, the sort of translation, he just kind of said that he hoped to be remembered mostly as a good person from a small village in Mallorca, which I thought was really nice. It really demonstrates, I think, sort of the humility of his character. And he was very some lovely words from him, just saying he's been very lucky that he's had all these opportunities and unforgettable experiences, achieved more than he's ever dreamed, but fundamentally he just wanted to be remembered as a good person, which I think absolutely he will be remembered as, indeed.
Also quite good at tennis, we might remember him for that as well.
Quite handy with a racket.
Yeah, quite handy with a racket.
On a clay court.
Yeah. We will get on to the results from the Davis Cup as well. I mean, I just want to say, I don't want to appear too smug, but I did say the Netherlands were a tricky
You also
customer.
predicted the winners of both competitions, Kim.
I did,
so we should have a moment now and say, Kim,
thank you.
When it comes to team events, no one can beat you at these predictions.
I mean, just on a wider picture on Rafa and Spain. Kim? How do you see this sort of leaving Spanish men's tennis? Because the fact that they went out in the quarterfinals, is that reflective now of where sort of the stature of Spain are in men's tennis? Even sort of relying on the fact that we're still even talking about Roberto Bautista Agut suggests maybe there's going to be maybe a little bit of a kind of a lull period. I know we have Carlos Alcaraz, but how do you see kind of Spanish tennis going on from Rafa retirement?
Yeah, I think the fact that RBA was our next best alternative, and Granolas was still going on in the doubles. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be Alcaraz dominant for the next several years, and rather than having the depth that I think Spanish tennis has been really lucky to have had over the last kind of few decades, really. I don't think it's looking likely there's going to be too many other Spaniards right up there at the top. I'd love to be proven wrong, though. I hope there's some really good Spanish youngsters out there who will be following through in the wake of, Alcaraz's success at such a young age as well. But, I don't think they've got the current depth to maybe be challenging in the same way that they have been able to over the last few decades. I mean, Rafa had a 29 match win streak at Davis Cup, which really helped
It does help,
Spain
doesn't it?
over the last, 20 years or so. And I mean, I think as a result of that winning streak, yeah, it was maybe natural that he would be put into the singles, even without the fact that he's played, minimal amounts this season. But yeah, I think certainly compared to the likes of Italy, they've won it now 2 years on the trot. Yeah, I think Spanish tennis might have to do a bit of soul searching for a bit, or
Well,
rely just heavily
they're
on
not too
Alcaraz.
far off, though, are they, when you think about it? Because if you look at what the Netherlands were able to achieve,
Yeah.
Van der Zandschulp is ranked 80 in the world, and their top ranked player is only just sort of outside the top, I think top 40 now. So they're not necessarily completely stacked in terms of the players that they have. Talon Griekspoor is at number 40. So if you're inspired, if you get your selections right, and so often it comes down to selections, and I do think that, they do have a player, Pedro Martinez, who's 43 in the world. They have got a few other players like 51. So on paper, they should have won this. So I think that probably is maybe because they sacrificed the tie for the Rafael Nadal send off
Mm.
that he deserves. And the
Yeah.
chance to play one more singles match, which I think was the right call. I
Yeah.
think they'll regroup. And I think obviously with someone as talented as Alcaraz in the doubles, I mean, I love watching him play doubles. It's great to see a different side of him. And I think he's not far off, doing a Sinner Davis Cup, maybe
Yeah.
ATP Finals double.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite. Well, just one final note on Rafa's retirement. If you do want to relive some of the glory days, then we do have a very special video podcast that we recorded recently with a countdown of Nadal's top 10 career moments, with footage throughout his career included. So do go to our YouTube channel to check that one out, because yeah, it's not to be missed if you want to reminisce over Rafa's top moments. And let's have a look now at what did happen in the Davis Cup after that Spain-Netherlands tie, because Italy went on to win the title for the second year on the trot. Perhaps in a calmer fashion than last year. It was up against the Netherlands in the final, two rubbers to none, pretty standard, two straight sets wins for Jannik Sinner and Matteo Berrettini in the final. And here they, go again, taking title for the second year in a row. Joel, how impressive were the Italians over the past week? They were coming into it, I think, one of the favourites to win it, and spearheaded by Jannik Sinner, they did not disappoint, did they?
Yeah, it all felt, on whether Jannik Sinner was going to play or not, and the fact that he, has been feeling fresh, had the momentum, of course, from the ATP finals where he didn't drop a set. He just kind of continued that on, and to be backed up as well by Matteo Berrettini, it's not a bad 1-2 combination, and yeah, they just sort of was very kind of, it just felt very businesslike for the majority of their matches, and yeah, it's just shows, I think, the sort of dynasty at the moment that is happening with Italian tennis across the men's front and the women's front, which we'll get onto. But just team wise, they just have so much more, I think, strength in depth than some of the other nations, perhaps, and that really counted for them. But it definitely, obviously, helps having the world number one.
Yeah, you've got a Grand Slam champion and a Grand Slam finalist as your top two
It's
in
not
the
bad.
final. It's pretty good advantage to have. And Talon Griekspoor, he did make a bit of a match of it with Sinner. Took the first set to a tie break, but it was kind of one-way traffic for the rest of it. And Berrettini beating Van der Zandschulp 6-4, 6-2, pretty comfortable. Didn't even need to play the doubles. And Jannik Sinner, just a word on him, like he's ending his 2024 season now with a 92.41% win rate, 73 matches won, 6 lost. It's the most wins by a player in a single season since Andy Murray in 2016. he's just been on fire this last few weeks, especially. Chris, I know we touched upon this, I think, a bit last week, but do you see this Sinner run kind of just continuing when we pick up again in the new year?
I mean, how can you not think that's going to happen? I think well, looking back to last year, also thinking about how far he's come from that being a bit of an upset. I think it feels like he's been at the top of the game so much longer because of how dominant he's been this year. He hadn't won a slam at the end of last year, and we didn't even know after Australia if he would continue that on. And he hasn't really looked back. And we said that last week on the pod, just how impressive it's been. He's added this as well, having won his first ATP finals. It just gets more impressive, to be honest. And I mean, people aren't even necessarily taking sets off him at this rate. I think he's won 26 sets in a row. He's making it look easy going past these sort of top players. And he's also bouncing back so well from, long weeks. He's played more tennis than probably anyone else, but he still seems to be, fit as a fiddle, ready to keep going. And I think it's probably, if you're a player on the tour right now, you'll be very, very concerned if you see him on the draw sheet at some of the slams, because he's not losing to people he shouldn't be losing to. He really is getting it done. And I also just love watching him on the doubles court as well. And this is something I was going to ask you both, that I was surprised actually when I saw that he was playing in the doubles. And it made me think a little bit. We'll talk about this when we get to the Billie Jean King Cup, but playing your best players in the doubles, especially if they've got such fantastic serves like Berrettini and Sinner, they were the selection for that crucial doubles match that got them through to the final when they took out Australia. And what was also very interesting about that is that they do actually have, a very, very good doubles team as part of the Italian team. They have Vavasori and Bille, who've had some great results this year. They're so highly ranked. They're ranked at 10, 11 in doubles as a pair. I think they're higher than that. So it was quite interesting to me that was the selection, because turns out I think Jannik Sinner could be world number one in doubles and singles based on what I saw this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was against Argentina, not Australia.
Argentina, that was
quarters,
it. Sorry,
but,
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's always interesting when you choose the singles players over like the doubles specialists. But I guess it goes back to that point on like these players, if they did kind of commit to doubles, they would be the best ones at it. And although it may have felt like a bold call, I think when you're just playing and feeling confident in your game, like Jannik Sinner is, it almost doesn't matter which type of court you're on. You're going to be playing very good tennis.
Let's move on to the Billie Jean King Cup finals now. And it was double success for Italy as they also won the women's team event. So brilliant for Italian tennis, clinching both team titles this year. Jasmine Paolini, especially, I think she's had a fantastic season with quite a few kind of final losses. So I'm personally very pleased she's been able to pick up a title this time around with the Davis Cup, with the Billie Jean King Cup. But they beat Slovakia, a bit of a surprise package in the final. Again, 2 rubbers to nil. And again, this was quite straightforward in their final as well, with straight sets wins. So yeah, Italians dominant in both. Chris, this is the 5th title for Italy this century. So they do have good pedigree at the Billie Jean King Cup finals. But what was it that made this squad in particular have the success in this year, 2024?
Well, I think what's been so interesting is actually some of the players. We see this quite regularly. I think last year as well, there's always a bit of a standout player, maybe in that number 2 singles, that really does do something special that you're not expecting, who's genuinely just so inspired by playing for their country. Because Bronzetti isn't necessarily someone you would think would be winning a crucial match at these key moments in ties, but she got some really big wins that actually meant that they were able to get past Poland, for example, even though Paolini went down to Iga, and then they clinched it on the double. So I think it's great to see some of these players thrive in these situations, but I also think that Italy are clearly a nation where the players thrive playing for their country. It really is part of the culture, part of the spirit. And I think some countries don't always have that necessarily. And I think that playing as a team, and I think this seemed with Paolini and the double success she had at the Olympics, they really do get along brilliantly. They're so passionate about bringing it home. And it's almost a bigger deal for them than winning some of the individual titles, which I think is really refreshing, because there's always talk about how important is the Davis Cup, how important is the Billie Jean King Cup. Well, I think this last week has showed just how important it is some of the top players in the world when it comes to the competition, because a lot's on the line, and for them, playing for their country is the most important thing they can be doing this week.
Yeah, and they did get to the final last year, but lost to Canada, which was quite heartbreaking for them. So really nice to get the win as a sort of make up for that sad loss last year. And Sara Errani, who was actually in the team, she won this back in 2013, which was the last time they actually won the title. So she, I think, as the player that's now got the longest gap between winning two Billie Jean
Wow.
King Cup
Didn't know
Incredible.
that. Did you see the
titles.
underarm serve on match point in the doubles early in the week?
Oh, I did not see that.
She
Bold.
threw in an
Although
underarm.
also not that surprised.
Not that surprising, but I just thought that is really quite tasty, especially in those big points. But I mean, she's had a fantastic year.
She has. I mean, she has, hasn't she?
Who would have thought? I mean, 2024 Olympic and Billie Jean King Cup winners, as well as having some fantastic results. I mean, reaching the finals of slams. If anyone's had a renaissance this year, I think it's got to be
Sara
Sara
Errani.
Errani.
Yeah, age 37 and
Yeah.
still going strong. But no, it's really fantastic. And Slovakia, we've got to mention them because they were technically like the smallest nation in the finals. They beat USA, Australia, and unfortunately for us, Great
Yes.
Britain on the way to getting there, and don't really have any star players. Rebecca Sramkova, is a top player, and yes, she's definitely a sort of a mover and shaker of this season, but certainly not anywhere near to being a household name. But as underdogs, they've sort of made their way throughout the event and didn't really challenge in the final, but it's a fantastic performance from them.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of reminds me of Finland in the Davis Cup last year when we were there, because they were,
Mm.
very unfancied and were, causing waves in the tournament, and sort of felt like with Slovakia, it just shows, I think, the elevation that playing for your country can give you, so that it almost, as I say, kind of takes rankings out the window, and even again against the powerhouses like United States of America. Unfortunately, Great Britain as well, it can it can make these matches really competitive when you sort of think on paper, actually it's a bit of a mismatch.
The David versus Goliath
It
situation, it almost
is.
seems like it really does spur some of these teams on, up against the USA with all the firepower that they have to
Mm.
offer. And I mean, nothing matters here because they don't have to, they're not don't have to qualify to get into a 1,000 draw. They're not going out in qualifiers. They're playing the top players in the world. They're showing what they can do. And this might be the only chance that some of these players get to do that on an international stage. So it really does produce some upsets. And I do love that. I don't love the GB upset. And I'd ask maybe Kim, what do you think about the fact that we did go out? I think you also said don't underestimate Slovakia when I was getting all excited for the final.
We both were.
We
Well,
were.
I did look at I was, following it and I saw, Emma Raducanu won in straight sets, Katie Boulter set up, and I just thought, oh my gosh, we're in the final. I
Mm,
just thought, wow, this is great. I got too ahead of myself because, it ended up going to the doubles and we lost. And I feel like it was a big missed opportunity. I think if
mm.
Boulter had just done that in two, I think she'll be ruining that really.
Yeah,
But
it's a tough one.
it's tricky, but they did so well, I think, to get through two rounds, Germany and Canada, wasn't it? I think to get to the semi-finals. So I think
I
they should think about the positives from that.
Mm.
I was very close to messaging you both to be like, are we getting last minute flights to Malaga?
Ooh. I mean, that would have been interesting, wouldn't
When you
it?
start to
Yes.
have those thoughts, that's when it goes pear-shaped, I
Yes,
think.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
I think it does show. I think what I've realized from this competition and from the team competitions is it helps. I know we speak a lot about the doubles and having a really good doubles pairing helps, but having a really solid number two singles player to get you off on the front foot, I almost think is as crucial, if not even more crucial. And I think Raducanu showed that for GB in Malaga. That yeah, like just having that person to lay a
Rock
platform.
solid, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. I think is
she was
really,
great.
really helpful.
Yeah, solid from Raducanu all week. So some really, really positive from her. And just a note on Slovakia, they did actually win the title back in 2002. And Chris, is that because
Yes,
of Daniela
it
Hantuchova? I
is.
have to ask
Yes,
you. Yeah, it's
it
got to be,
is.
hasn't it?
Yeah, she was in that team indeed. Yeah, I was just reminiscing about that, at the time,
Thought you might
seeing
be.
will they do it again? And I remember watching some of that. I very much enjoyed it. Um, a long time ago though that was. So it's great to see that they're, once again rising to the top of the international sort of
I
tennis.
I cannot tell. Could you tell me the other players in that squad?
Ooh, at the
Too
time.
early for
I've
Sabulkova,
put you on
wasn't
the
it?
spot,
Then
I
but
don't think it would have been
oh,
Sabulkova. I'm trying to think about some of the other players that would have been on that team. I I'm actually not sure I could name any right now. I would have been under 10 at the time, so that is a bit of a
well,
stretch, maybe.
maybe we need to do a belated, top 10 career highlights of Daniela Hantuchova, seeing
oh,
as
there we go.
both Joel and I have had our,
Oh,
favorite
I'd love
players,
that.
an episode on them this year each. We don't want to deny you, but
I
like,
feel like
listeners, let us
maybe,
know, is there
yeah.
demand for that?
Would you like to see that, or would that be an episode that I shoot solo and never gets released?
Well, let's take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half where we'll be discussing Andy Murray joining Novak Djokovic's camp for the Australian Open, the ATP and WTA awards and nominees for the 2024 season, and also what role doubles should play in team competitions. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, and it's time, as always, to kick off the second half with another game. Chris, you have invented this week's, I believe. So over to you.
I have indeed. I thought it's time that Joel gets back into the hot seat. And it's also time that I pick something that he has the least chance of winning. So if anyone
Yeah,
thinks I'm biased, I'm not
Kim,
sure
I'm sorry, Chris. I'm worried because you said earlier that Kim is the hot favorite for this one.
she is. Any guesses of the topic? If Kim's the
Rafa
hot favorite,
themed?
it's Rafa themed.
That
Oh
would be
no!
topical.
Oh
Yeah, I
no!
thought it had to be topical. We always are quite topical with these, even for mysterious players. But we are going to do a traditional path of the courts where it will be up to either Joel or Kim to say how many they think they can get right, and then they will challenge each other if they think they can beat it. So you
Okay.
can also play at home and you can see if you can beat both Joel and Kim in terms of the number they're saying potentially. And the topic we have players that Rafael Nadal has defeated in Grand Slam finals.
Ooh.
Great
There
Oh,
are
question.
wow.
Great
Okay.
topic.
there are 11 in total, I believe, across the whole of his career. Obviously, this is in singles, just to be fully transparent. You don't have to tell me the years, but you do have to tell me the names of these opponents. And
Oh,
it's only fair that Joel gets to say a number because I think Kim might say a higher number.
I think she. Well, I'm. Who knows? Well, how high am I going to go here? How daring am I going to be?
Are you just going to say a number? Or are you going to think in your head a little bit beforehand? It seems
Oh,
like you're just going to say something.
I'm not sure. I'm not going to lie.
I think par would be good at 6. No,
I
7 maybe. 7 seems good. Joel, come on.
I'm going to say 5. I can do 5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. Kim,
Oh, so I've just got to say if I can beat that.
well,
Yeah, I can beat that, I think.
you're going to say you're
So
going to do it?
6,
Oh,
6.
yeah, say 6 then. Yeah,
That's the smart answer.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Right,
I won't
Kim.
say my rogue ones first, shall I?
Oh,
Please, Kim, say
for
the
all
ones
of
that
our
you
sake,
know
please
are
don't say the
right.
rogue ones
Okay,
first.
yeah.
No charity work today. You need to beat Joel.
Right. Okay, shall I go for it?
Off you go.
Okay. Roger Federer,
That's a correct
Kim,
answer.
don't go for the rogue ones first.
Novak Djokovic,
Another correct answer.
Daniil Medvedev,
I mean, this is too easy. Correct.
Thomas Berdych.
Oh,
Really
yes.
good answer. 2010
Yeah.
Wimbledon.
Yeah. Casper Ruud,
His most
Oh,
recent
yes, French
victory at the
Open.
French
We
Open.
just rolled over for him. Yeah. Oh, I
Yep.
forgot about that one.
David Ferrer.
David Ferrer, yes, French Open
Oh,
2013.
is that 5?
I'm not even
I don't know,
counting, but she must be
I've lost
almost there.
count.
I can double
Mariano
check.
Puerta, obviously in his very
Yeah.
first.
You are on 6 already, so you have
Do I
already
keep going?
achieved it. Would you like to keep going, Kim?
I might as well see how many I can get. Robin Soderling,
That is correct. That was the 2010 Roland Garros
The
title.
revenge one.
Indeed.
Now I'm going into territory that's Stan Wawrinka. I'm sure he beat him in a Roland Garros final.
That is correct. 2017.
Kim.
And there's a US Open. He never beat Andy Murray though, did he? I don't think.
I was
No.
just trying to think that. Was that a
Ooh.
red
Slam
herring
final.
answer?
Don't think he did. I was going to say him. I thought actually, I don't think. No. There'll be a US Open, and wasn't it against? Was no, the Berrettini match was a semi-final, wasn't it? And then wasn't it Medvedev in the final? So,
Have you said Medvedev?
yeah, I said Medvedev.
Oh, you're already on 7 to clarity
Oh,
then.
right,
Sorry,
yeah.
yes.
But there's 4 more. So
I'm
where?
gonna say Murray.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say Murray.
Or maybe I've got all the numbers wrong. Maybe you have got more than I thought.
Some are multiple, like Casper Ruud beat twice. A lot of them will
Is
be
Murray on the
Djokovic and
list?
Federer.
Oh, maybe you've got more than 7, but there are definitely 2 more at least left.
Oh, they must be at Roland Garros, mustn't they? Like rogue
I can tell you one of
finalists.
them was twice at Roland Garros.
I've said David Ferrer, Casper Ruud,
Recently
Stan
retired.
Wawrinka. Oh, it is Andy Murray then.
It's not. It's Dominic
No.
Thiem.
Oh, Dominic
Oh,
Thiem, of
Dominic
course.
Thiem. Yes.
And then there's a US Open. It is the one you're thinking of.
Is it Berrettini?
It is not, though.
No.
It is Kevin Anderson.
Kevin Anderson. I
Oh,
would
great
never have
shout.
remembered that.
Great
Wow.
shout.
So just to double check,
Wow.
we had Puerta, his first final, 2005 French Open. Federer, which was many, many times. That was the 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2011 French Open, 2008 Wimbledon, and also 2009 Australian Open. Soderling, we've already mentioned the dates of that one. Burdick was the same year at Wimbledon. Novak Djokovic, I think Kim could probably recite these. God, we've got a tattoo of some of these results on her arm. That was at the US Open in 2010 and 2013, as well as the French Open in 2012, 2014, and 2020 with David Ferrer. We've mentioned the dates. We've had Stan Wawrinka, Kevin Anderson, Dominic Thiem, Medvedev at the US Open in 2019, that famous match, as well as the Australian Open in 2022. And finally, it was Casper Ruud. So that gives you 11. And I think you got 9 then. And I was very
Yeah.
bad at the
Done,
maths.
Kim.
Forgot Thiem and Anderson.
Thrashed
So
me.
sorry, Joel, I did beat you on that.
I mean, Kim got to numbers that even I couldn't keep count of. She succeeded so well at that. So start with the ones you know, Kim. Did it work for you this week?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. Always start with Federer and Djokovic if in doubt
And
on an
I'm
ATP question,
I'm a
probably.
bit annoyed we told her this tip the week before we think about the quiz.
Oh, yes, very
Because
true, very
now
true.
she knows she's got to guess the right answers first.
It's right. There's still room for like me to say random Russian players at
That's
some
true.
point, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I'm sure you'll throw in some names.
But thanks for putting that together. It's a good
Yeah, well
little
done,
trip down
Kim.
memory lane. Let's dip into the mailbag now because Linda has got in touch on Twitter with us. So thanks, Linda. Linda has said, as a doubles enthusiast, it has been a big shame that no doubles was played in either the Billie Jean King Cup or Davis Cup finals. Do you think that the format for the finals loses the essence of what a tennis team competition is all about? And if so, how would you change it to make it better? So thanks very much, Linda. So in both of the Italy, Netherlands and Italy, Slovakia ties, obviously Italy won both the finals with 2 singles rubbers. They didn't even need to play the doubles, so we never got to see it. So is there a way where we could avoid this scenario from happening? Joel, what do you think? Coming to you first.
Yeah, it's just I sort of understand it. It does make doubles important if it does go to that final rubber, but obviously the challenge is you don't always get there, and as a result of that, it does mean that if you have 2 really strong singles players, you could in theory win a team competition with just playing really good singles, which doesn't necessarily feel right. So I do think maybe there is an opportunity to look at where that doubles rubber is played. I guess you could either play it in that first position or the second position, because then it would be, it would have to be played. I think for me, if I were to choose, I would put it in the second position if we are thinking about a change. I think I still quite like the idea of, singles opening and actually maybe having number 1 versus number 1 in the singles in that opening rubber. because that's what people are there for. That's what gets people excited. And then the doubles is the thing that can swing it, and I think offers that balance of at least having 2 live rubbers, 1 singles, and 1 doubles.
Yeah, and I suppose if it's number ones battling it out in the first match, you're not going to deny the audience the opportunity to see the number one players should the team get through on the singles and a doubles, together.
Yeah.
Chris, is there any other options that you would maybe go for?
Well, I think this is quite radical, but I just came to me the idea of, I think we have got the United
3
Cup.
doubles ties.
Well, I was
3 doubles rubbers.
That's kind of
singles.
That's kind of what I was thinking, Joel, in terms of is there almost like a doubles Davis Cup that needs to exist where you have, your top doubles team from each nation, and then you have a mixed doubles as your third rubber. So you do women and men's. Should it be expanded in that sort of way? But that's probably one which scheduling would cause too much of a problem to be a big red flag, that one, in terms of players competing. But I think the issue is when it comes to the home and away matches, that third tie is the doubles because you've got 5 to play with. It makes a lot of sense there. It feels like it's the natural sort of interlude between the singles matches being played. But when you have such a short format like this, you can't really have the doubles first when you have the number one singles playing, because you wouldn't actually necessarily get your top player in singles. Jannik Sinner might not play both of those because you need to make sure that you win that final one. So it might mean more doubles players get a shout, but it might mean for fans, you wouldn't get to see Jannik Sinner twice potentially. And then it might change a little bit because you can't really have the number ones playing the final one when you're back the next morning, and the recovery from a doubles versus a single is quite different. So it is a challenge. I do honestly miss the doubles. I think it doesn't feel like it's a singles competition. It's quite strange when it can be one like that. But I think overall, we'd say the format of this competition has actually made it much more exciting as a finale again. And when we do get the doubles, I mean, last year, Djokovic and Sinner facing off on a doubles court. I mean, it was fantastic to watch. It was one of the most electric Davis Cups I've ever seen. So this is the flip side of that can happen.
You can't have it all. That's the problem.
You can't have it all unless you're Jannik Sinner, and then you can have it all the wins. But I don't think he would be complaining about not having to play the doubles in the final.
Yeah, I can't think of any other ways you could do it. And it's like forcing people to play a dead rubber as well there's no point in that either, because where's the drama, where's the excitement?
You love a dead rubber though, Joel.
I do. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I love watching late night rubbers that don't mean anything.
Rubbers.
But you're always saying me postpone dinner reservations. We got to watch this one.
We've got to watch this. Go past midnight. But I don't know. I think it's tough, but I still think I still personally like how it is at the moment. I just think, I think there will be people out there who might just think, you shouldn't be able to win these sorts of competitions.
Why bring a doubles team?
Singles alone? What's the point? Yeah.
But then at the same time, was our downfall, Great Britain in the women's side of things, because they hadn't played any doubles in live matches that week until the semi-final. And it was a pair that haven't played together before. So that's also kind of a bit of a not great aspect of things, because then you don't get players who have played regularly that week. It's almost like the first time you could play a doubles could be the final. You don't
want to be too good and just win all your singles matches, because when it comes to needing the doubles,
then you're in trouble. Enough. Yeah, exactly. But we didn't have that problem in the end.
No, I mean, there's no sort of perfect way of doing it, I suppose. And the old format also, I'm sure, had issues with it. And, there's always going to be something. Unfortunately, it's not a utopian tennis event. That probably doesn't really exist. But listeners, let us know, what would you do anything different, or would you kind of keep it as it is? We'd love to know what you think. And let us know also if you ever have any questions for the mailbag, as we do love putting our minds to them each week and giving them a go as well. And let's now hark back to the news that Andy Murray is going to be joining Novak Djokovic's coaching team for 2025 Australian Open. Murray is going to be in the box in Australia. This was a very shocking announcement on Saturday, just gone. And Andy Murray not retired for very long, and back at the very forefront of men's tennis in this capacity. I have to say, I did love their social media posts well, Novak's anyway, the phrase he never liked retirement anyway, which was kind of a joke on Andy Murray when he retired earlier in the year, never even liked tennis anyway. So that was, I think, greatly amusing. But yeah, why do you think this has come about? Do you think this would have been an instant yes from Andy Murray, Joel, when
Ooh.
he was asked?
I think I think we've seen from players who retire that it's very difficult for people when they've been doing something their whole life just to hang up their racket and relax and do nothing. And I think this is another example of that. With Andy Murray, he wants to be a busy guy. He's doing his kind of his tour, talking about all of his stories next year in the summer. And I think, he wants to keep busy. And I just think that it's very hard for elite players to truly switch off. And Murray always wants to challenge himself. And if he can't challenge himself anymore on the tennis court, but he still wants to be involved in the game, then I certainly think there are other ways to do that. And it looks like, for him, coaching and coaching with someone he knows inside and out from his playing days, I think there's a situation where there's an advantage to him, but there's also an advantage to Djokovic because he'll get a brand new side of thinking from a current player that he has grown up with, that you don't maybe necessarily get with those super coaches who played in a previous generation. So I see it as sort of a win-win scenario for both, but I do think that it just shows tennis players just really have a hard time of giving up tennis for good.
I mean, they do know each other, very well. Obviously, playing in juniors and as adults, they're only a week apart in age as well. Same year, a week apart. So there's sort of a kinship between them. I think that maybe that's never gone away. Chris, you asked our audience on social media, didn't you, what
Mm.
they thought, and what was the results of that?
I thought we've got to find out because we weren't sure what to make of it. So we thought, let's see what our audience think. And I worded some of these to be as friendly as possible. So I didn't say, no, this isn't right. I said, not sure it's the move. It could work and it's the perfect match. And 34% of the audience said it's a perfect match. 41% are optimists. They're kind of saying it could work. They're not
Mm.
sure it will. And then 25% said they're not sure it's the move. So quite divided, but I think we're erring on the positive side of things. I think a lot of us, it was quite shocking to hear that news. So it's probably not a negative response to it. It's probably much more of a, we'll see what will happen because it is quite uncharted
Yeah.
territory to see someone who, was part of the big four, now part of the coaching team of one of his rivals. And I think that's also what's so interesting about this. And when I saw this, I was thinking, okay, probably Murray doesn't really want to give up the tennis connection. We talked about this. Joel's mentioned it. He's addicted. He played probably a little bit too long when it came to the end there. Maybe put himself and his whole team through a lot more than maybe was absolutely necessary, as some things that he's alluded to. But it is interesting to have someone who has been playing against all of these top players so recently and has been playing against them and getting some decent results, even when he hasn't been at his physical prime.
Mm.
And I think that's a very interesting perspective of Murray finding a way to compete and finding a way to win, even though he hasn't necessarily been playing the best tennis of his career at the time. And he's been dealing with moving away from the sport. So I think from many different perspectives, as well as their friendship, Murray can offer very valuable insight in terms of actually playing against these people, but also experiencing some of the similar, I'm not saying Novak Djokovic is struggling, but some of the similar challenges that he's been experiencing this year on the tour.
Yeah, I think that would be invaluable, actually, like you've both said. And maybe also Andy Murray just fancied a trip to Australia at
Yeah,
that time of the
a,
year. It
a
must be
trip on
really hard
Djokovic.
not
Yeah.
to be there
I wonder what his
when you're
fee is, right? I'm
you're used
thinking
to it.
can't come cheap, Andy Murray.
It's just going to be so weird, I think, to see Andy Murray in Novak Djokovic's player box in Melbourne. I think we've got to take it with a little bit of pinch of salt in terms of this has just been announced for the Australian Open. We'd have no idea if this is going to continue, how it will even go. I mean, I quite like the idea. I read this. I think one of my friends suggested this to me. Like, could you see Novak Djokovic getting Andy Murray in for the Australian Open, Roger Federer in for
Ooh.
Wimbledon, Rafael Nadal in for the French Open, and I don't know.
Who would you get
Retire
I
at the
don't-
US Open.
Medvedev? I don't
Dominic
know.
Thiem.
Yeah. Ooh, goodness. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
could you imagine?
it will
That'd
be
be
very. I'm not sure
amazing.
Rafa will want to contribute towards Djokovic's GOAT status necessarily, but
Mm.
I do think it is very. It's. I've never seen a player go this quickly into coaching another top athlete. Um, and I'm sure that he will be very good at it. I thought maybe Murray would coach someone a bit more junior potentially, or someone who is more up and coming, where the experience that he has is greater than potentially. I thought maybe he'd be backing Jack Draper, but that maybe hasn't materialized because Jack is in a great spot right now, and maybe that will come later. But it's quite unusual to start your coaching relationship with the GOAT.
And what would Kim say? Not Kim,
Not
co-host,
me.
not co-host Kim.
Kim just
but,
told us what she would say, Joel.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and obviously Andy Murray has a big blossoming family. Yeah, what do you think Kim's reaction to this is? The fact that, you know, he's now
off
retired
again.
and it's like, oh, by the way, I'm still going back to Australia for the Australian Open.
She's probably quite used to him traveling quite a lot. So maybe she liked the peace and quiet. And now he's back and he's got nothing to do. You know, she's like, go on, please give me 2 weeks off when you're in Australia. I don't know. I think it's interesting because you always think that people will have a bit of a transition period, as we talked about. I mean, Judy Murray thinks it's fabulous. I thought maybe he might be helping his brother in a bit of doubles. I see it more as a consulting sort of thing right now. Maybe it won't be a commitment to the year, so he still can have the balance with his family. I think you can get the best of both worlds from a coaching situation, and we've seen
You could
top
do that
coaches
virtually if it was a consultancy type situation.
Yeah,
So,
you could come for the ones that matter. And we know that Djokovic is going after slams. He's not going after smaller tournaments, really. He is going after one more title, that's for sure, to get 100. But it feels like more of a adding something to his team that he thinks will really benefit and really will be worthwhile adding at the moments it matters most.
Is there like a flip side to it in terms of this is like a last chance saloon for Novak Djokovic? You know, he's almost like, is it desperate or clutching at straws?
Desperate to hire Andy Murray, Joel.
I mean, like to go in on a path that is so radical and so rogue that no one has ever thought of. Do you think there's like, as I say, it's like a method to the madness type situation?
Ooh, I think at this stage of the career, I think why not try things? I think it's less desperation. I think it's more, you know, you've seen this with some other players like Federer. He added Ivan Lubicic, who actually moved probably quite quickly as well from playing and being a rival of his to actually being a member of his team. And I think you want different opinions. And I think potentially he's had a lot of similar opinions. He has obviously got rid of Goran. And then now he maybe has a bit of a vacancy from someone who he'd like to get a different perspective on some of his matches and what he could be doing. And I think that I'm not sure necessarily that there's anything that much more to it than thinking this could be a great addition. And also, I really want to enjoy my tennis and playing tennis. And I really enjoy Andy Murray, and we've been friends for so long. This will really add a positive new lens to Australia. What do you think, Kim? Is he desperate?
I mean, I think what? No,
So
I don't.
desperate was a harsh
No,
word.
it's fine.
I wouldn't say desperate. I mean, I trust Djokovic's judgment with the amount that he's won. So,
will Murray be a
let's see what
vegan?
happens come January. But let's have a look now at the WTA Awards. We've also got some ATP Awards, but we do have all the nominations out. So hot off
It's
the
like
press.
the Oscars.
It is like essentially the Oscars for tennis. So let's have a quick look at each of the categories. We've got WTA Player of the Year, we've got Doubles Team of the Year, Most Improved Player of the Year, and Newcomer of the Year. And Comeback Player of the Year. So I think some really good, solid categories there. Should we quickly go through each of them and just shout out who we would go for? I mean, there are nominations, so we are going to be selecting from the official list.
Yes.
So WTA Player of the Year, we've got Goff, Paolini, Sabalenka, Swiatek, and Qinwen Zheng. Any immediate names for you guys? Who do you think?
Be the number one.
What, Sabalenka?
Oh, default, absolutely.
Be a bit rude not to, I suppose.
It would, yeah. Joel,
I've got to go Sabalenka as well.
I'm surprised you didn't say Zhang. You're a big fan of Zhang, Joel.
Yeah, I mean, she had a good end to the season, but yeah, for me, Sabalenka most consistent across the 12 months.
I think Paolini would be a close second for me. I know she didn't come away with titles so much, but just maybe more of the surprise package.
I was thinking that she might have been in the Most Improved Player of the Year. And if we look at that category, I think there's a rule that says you can't be in both.
Right.
Otherwise, obviously, she would be the standout candidate for this one, I believe.
For
But on this
sure.
list, we have Danielle Collins, Kalinskaya, Marta Kostyuk, Emma Navarro, and Diana Schneider. And that's for the most improved player who showed significant improvement to finish inside the top 100. Joel, need I look further than you to say Danimal?
Yeah, I've got to go Danielle Collins. Yeah, just given all of she's gone through, you know, the way she's played this season. Yeah, I've got to go with DC. Although Schneider's a close second, but yeah,
Interesting.
Collins.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel like Collins has been up there before, so yes, it is still an improvement, but
More of
perhaps
a
not as
comeback player
a
of the year, you'd
new.
think.
Yeah.
Although it's not
Yeah.
newcomer, is it? I mean, I was going to go with either Navarro or Schneider personally.
I was thinking Navarro purely because she
Mm,
was playing, you know, challengers last year and then she's in the semi-finals of the US Open. So
yeah.
that could be, I think we're a bit divided there, but I mean,
Okay.
I'm happy for anyone who wins this category because I think they all have showed big improvement.
What about newcomer of the year? So this is players who debuted in the top 100 and have maybe other notable accomplishments. So we've got Erica Andreeva, Sonne Kartau from Great Britain, Zeynep Sonmez, Rebecca Stramkova, and Lulu Sun. Some names there we do definitely know. This is quite tricky, isn't it?
I'm going to be
I'm tempted to say
biased here.
Stramkova.
Oh,
I'm going
Kim, no.
Lulu.
I'll go
Oh,
Cartel.
well, yeah.
Okay. Well,
To be fair, Kartau did win a title, didn't she? And she's British, so
Grand
maybe
Slam
we should give it to her.
semi-finalist, Lulu Sun. What? Oh my
That's true.
goodness.
Comeback player, how about that? Anisimova, Badosa, Mukova, Osaka,
Oh,
Raducanu. So
this is a loaded list.
really strong names here. Mukova?
Oh,
I think Mukova or
I was
Badosa
looking towards Mukova.
probably. I mean,
Mm,
Mukova, when I spoke to her in Eastbourne, she wasn't even able to hold a racket, and then she came back and made a semi-final at the US Open. I mean, she's so talented. I think that's huge. I think Anisimova for personal reasons, Badosa, some of the chronic conditions that she has to manage that to get back up. I mean, very, very worthy players. I'm not sure that necessarily Osaka or Raducanu are really at the same league as the top three players
mm,
in terms of the comeback, and I think I'd like to see Mukova or Badosa win that one.
yeah. And just finally, doubles team of the year. We've
Oh
got
yeah,
Dabrowski, Routledge, Danilina Kromacheva, Sue Wei Shea and Elise Mertens, Kitchenok, Ostapenko, Irani, Paolini, or Siniakova, Taylor Townsend. I know you're a big fan of Gabby Dabrowski, Joel, especially, former guest of the podcast. Would you
Yeah, I feel
be
like
selecting her?
because they won the WTA finals as well, didn't they? I gotta go. Yeah, I feel like it's Dabrowski, Routledge, for similar reasons to Sabalenka, I would say.
oh, okay. Interesting. I feel a bit bad for
It's tough.
Siniakova because she can't win it with the partners that she's played with throughout the year. She's won multiple slams this year, but with different partners. So that's a bit tricky. So I probably would go for, you know, Irani, Paolini for the consistency. I know
Yeah.
this is WTA and they have won Olympics and some non-WTA events, but I think they've done really great. And I want Paolini to lead with an award.
Yes, she deserves something for sure, especially recency bias maybe with the Davis Cup. Billie Jean King Cup. Sorry,
Okay, oh, it's
just
tough, isn't
keep
it?
saying the wrong
The
thing.
Sarah
Uh,
Irani Cup maybe in the future.
I feel like if I was Paolini, I would have preferred to have been in most improved player category as opposed to
hmm,
player of the year category, where it
I
doesn't
just
feel
want
like I've
I
got
would
less
just
of a
want an
chance.
award. That's all I would want,
just give
really.
me
Just
something.
make an award for
Most
Paolini.
The
friendly,
Paolini
positive
Award.
player.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's look at the ATP awards quickly because we've got then these are the nominations here are kind of voted for by the players, I think, as in who should be on the list. So we've got comeback player of the year first of all, and that's a toss up between Berrettini, Cilic, or Nishikori. I think I'd give it to Berrettini. I don't know about you guys.
Ooh. On the form, I probably would as well, but on the heart to come back, I think Nishikori. He's really been
Nishikori.
grinding out there and
Mm,
he's really done well. So I'm not sure Cilic would quite be up there. I mean, he did win a title, but I think probably it'd be one of those two.
And most improved, we've got Jack Draper, Thomas
Jack Draper.
Bachak, Pericard, or Tabilo.
Got to be
It's
Jack.
got to be Jack Draper, surely.
Yeah, although I'm surprised, like I could see Taylor Fritz on in this category.
Yeah.
I think he's done well this season. I think he's improved. I mean, there's an argument to say could Jannik Sinner be in most improved player of the year? Because I don't think we were really expecting him to go to this level from where he was at the end of last season.
That is true, but I mean, maybe someone's got to win something apart from Jannik Sinner this
That's
year.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, he's won all his titles, his matches. He doesn't need an ATP award, does he? Newcomer of the year, quite a short list here. Jakub Mensik or Zhizhen Sheng.
Mm. Mensik, I probably would go
Tricky.
for, but
Yeah, men's sick
yeah,
as well. Yeah.
that's a tough one.
Mensik
Here we go.
for us, perhaps.
Sportsmanship award. We've no longer got Nadal or Federer just taking this award. We've got Alcaraz, Dimitrov, Ruud, team. Who do we think is going to take that?
Oh, that's
Casper?
interesting. I mean, Casper's
Or Grigor?
lovely, and
Casper or Grigor?
is Sinner not on this list because he did win too much?
Maybe he did win too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not very sporting to win too
I
much,
probably
is it?
think they're going to start giving this one to Alcaraz because he does play,
Oh yeah.
very
I think Casper
positively.
Ruud deserves it most out of that list.
He's
though.
lovely. Yeah, definitely.
Is that just the loveliness award generally?
Yeah,
then?
just
I
more
don't
the
really know what it
loveliness
means,
across the
like,
whole of the
who's-
season.
lovely,
Is it a
here's your
moment or is
award.
it just like
least likely to do
well-respected?
bad line calls, but it's
Yeah.
all automated. I don't know what that means.
Definitely
Always
not Nick
shakes
Kyrgios.
hands. I don't know. Yeah.
No. And then lastly, we've got Coach of the Year, which is voted for by coaches. So we've got Xavier Malisse, who coaches Alexei Popyrin, Emmanuel Plunk, who coaches Pericard, Michael Russell coaches Taylor Fritz, Brad Steen coaching Tommy Paul, and James Trotman coaching Jack Draper.
Got to go Michael
So,
Russell, I'd say, in
all
terms of the
improvements there.
not Sinner, sorry. Fritz has really set himself up for a big full season next year. So that's big for US tennis. I think that would be where my vote would go, but I'm not a player.
I would go Taylor Fritz, Michael Russell as well.
Mhm.
Although, yeah, special shout out I think to Popyrin and Malisse because Popyrin I think
Mm.
has also has come on leaps and bounds this year. So yeah,
Not enough to be
So-
selected for the Davis Cup, though.
That's
Again,
true. Yeah,
which is quite shocking.
surprising. Yeah.
I think you can all go online and vote for your favorite singles player and doubles team as well. I think all of the results will be revealed in a couple of weeks' time, so I'm sure we'll cover that should that occur in the next few weeks. But well, actually, this may have been our final catch up of the season, although we do have some more episodes up our sleeves, so people will still be hearing from us, won't
Yes.
they? in
They
the
won't
coming
will.
miss us.
weeks?
They will. Don't worry, you will not miss us. We will be back next week for our famous tennis weekly quiz, where we look back on all of the 2024 season in a fun quiz where we challenge each other across all sorts of different categories. It's one of the most entertaining episodes of the calendar. Always one to look out for.
Chaos.
So definitely, it's just pure chaos that normally ends in Chris getting 100%. But we shall see. Oh, I put him on the spot there. There's some pressure there.
I know.
But yeah,
It's-
definitely one to look out for. We're also going to be at the UTS Grand Finals at the Copper Box in London. We're going to be doing lots of content from there. So yeah, lots and lots still to come. And of course, our crowdfund on GoFundMe is now open. So if you do want to support the show, then please do check out our crowdfunder. The link for our GoFundMe page is in the description. It will be open now for, well, I don't even know how long yet, but it is open now. So if you do want to, as I say, show your support, help our show thrive. As I say, we are a by fans for fans podcast. It really would mean a lot to all of us.
And I'm very much looking forward to there being a round on Slovakian tennis players from the noughties in the quiz next week.
Don't give it away,
Maybe.
Kim.
Maybe we should do a throwback round. That could be interesting. We've never done
Retro,
that
yeah,
before.
we can make that
you
work.
know? Ooh.
Retro round.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Listeners, though, I hope you've enjoyed our final tour catch up of the season from the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action from the ATP and WTA tours.
We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all major podcasting platforms out there. So if you like what you're hearing, then do make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as well as a like and a subscribe to us on YouTube.
And do make sure you check out our Nadal special on YouTube. That is a very exciting episode with all sorts of clips that are thrown in there for good measure to take you down memory lane. But you can also see clips from that on our social media, and you can always email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, and the handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. You can purchase Tennis Weekly merch. Joel was just saying it's the perfect Christmas gift to give a Tennis Weekly tote bag to somebody. And that's at
Absolutely.
etsy.com, exactly, /shop/tennis weekly podcast. And the email address you're looking for is tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next week for our Tennis Weekly end of season quiz, which promises to be lively as usual. So I hope you could join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.